What's up, everyone? This is Steve with the MMA Minute, and welcome to the MMA Minute Show. Today, we are breaking down UFC Vegas 90, headlined by Brendan Allen and Chris Curtis 2, where we'll go over my full card picks and predictions. Timestamps and chapters are down below if you want to skip around. If you're interested in our full betting guide, you'll get access to not just my bets and picks, but 2 other MMA betting analysts, 3 people for the price of 1. The link is in the description. If you made it this far, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment down below. This weekend, we have UFC Vegas 90. As I just mentioned, it's headlined by the rematch in Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis is stepping in here on short notice. With this card, we are back to the apex, but no worries because UFC 300 is right around the corner. We have a 3 p.m. prelim start time and a 6 p.m. main card start. For my picks, I'll start with the main card first, working from bottom to top, and then we'll do more of a quick pick style for the prelims. Let's get into it. First fight of the main card, we have Trevor Peek taking on Charlie Campbell. Peek is the plus 160 underdog. He is 5'9", 29 years old, 70-inch reach, taking on Charlie Campbell, who is minus 190. He is 6 foot, 28 years old, has a 72.5-inch reach. Charlie Campbell looked great in his UFC debut. He is a talented striker with a tall, lanky frame, works well from the outside, mixes up his attacks well, and when he has his opponent hurt, he goes in for the kill. He also trains out of Serra-Longo, so he is with a solid gym that also has a history of elite wrestlers and grapplers. But the big concern here is Campbell's Dana White Contender Series loss to Christian Duncan. He was dominating the fight, had Duncan hurt and dropped multiple times. And then in a wild turn of events, he got dropped and finished. That is very concerning because Trevor Peek is an absolute nightmare for 3 rounds. He's got a granite chin, constantly moves forward, and throws nothing but violent strikes. Campbell is certainly more skilled, but the danger factor of Peek is worrisome. I will believe in the talent here. Give me Charlie Campbell to win by decision. Next fight, we have Valter Walker taking on Lukasz Brzeski. You have Walker, who is now minus 320. He is 6'6". He is 26 years old. He has an 81-inch reach, taking on Brzeski, who's sitting at plus 225. He's 6'4", 31 years old, has a 78-inch reach. Guys, people talk about the Gronkowski gene pool or even the Jones brothers. You have John Jones, Chandler Jones. I even think there's another third Jones in there who might be a professional athlete. But how about the Walkers, man? Johnny Walker, we all know him. He is a freak specimen. He's 6'6", massive reach, athleticism for days. But check out his younger brother here, Valter Walker, who is an absolute beast of a man. And with his massive size at heavyweight, you'd assume he's a knockout artist, but he's actually the opposite. This dude is an aggressive wrestler with strong takedowns, suffocating forward pressure, and not a horrible gas tank. Sometimes it looks like he's overly tired, but he still grinds forward and secures takedowns in later rounds. His striking is god-awful, but he's still got big power on the feet. Brzeski is a smaller heavyweight. He's definitely going to have a clear speed and volume edge, but his takedown defense isn't good, and he struggles against power punchers. I don't think Valter Walker is going to live up to the hype and the expectations that we're seeing here. But I also just don't think Brzeski is going to be that guy to stop him, at least this early in his UFC career, for this type of fight. Stylistically, it seems pretty terrible for Brzeski. This is probably a huge setup fight for Valter to gain some hype. I'll go with Walker to get the job done. Give me round 1 knockout. Next fight on the card, we have Bahamondes taking on Christos Giagos. Bahamondes is minus 360. He is 6'3", 26 years old, has a 75.5-inch reach, taking on Giagos plus 270. He is 5'10", 34 years old, has a 71.5-inch reach. Giagos is an aggressive grappler who loads up on his shots and shoots for a high number of takedowns. He's averaging nearly 3 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he has 12 finishes on his record, 4 by submission. It is worth noting he has very high-level experience, having fought guys like Thiago Moises, Arman Saryuki, and Charles Oliveira, and Gilbert Burns. It's also worth noting he has been finished in 8 of his 11 losses. 2 by knockout or TKO, and a staggering 6 losses by submission. Bahamondes has a massive frame for 155. He is a tall, lanky striker with huge reach. He throws volume for days, has good cardio, and solid power. He did give up 3 takedowns and a loss to Ludovic Klein, but Klein is looking like an absolute monster these days, so really no major concerns there. I think Giagos is probably in a world of trouble here. He's dangerous early on, but the later this fight goes, it does favor Bahamondes. I will take my chances here for him to get the job done. I will say it happens inside the distance. Give me Bahamondes. Round 2, knockout. Next fight on the card, we have Charriere taking on Chepe Mariscal. Kind of crazy. These odds are now close to a pick'em. Charriere was a pretty big favorite earlier in the week. So Charriere minus 125, 5'8", 28 years old, 69-inch reach, taking on Chepe Mariscal, who's now plus 105 as the underdog, 5'7", 31 years old, has a 69-inch reach. Charriere is getting a lot of hype after an impressive UFC debut where he scored a nice round 1 knockout over Manolo Zucchini. He's a talented striker with big pop in his hands, and he likes to work in the wrestling, showing strong double leg takedowns where he'll scoop you off the ground and slam you to the mat. What's interesting is that he actually has 9 total losses on his record. Granted, 4 of those were early in his career, but he still has a lot of losses in Cage Warriors as well. Guys like Soren Bach and Jordan Vucenic, who are probably UFC level, but still he has showed signs of poor fight IQ, giving up positions on the ground, and the longer the fight goes, he clearly becomes a liability as multiple of his fights have been split decisions. Some wins, but also some losses mixed in there as well. That's a bad look when you're going in there against Chepe Mariscal, who is the definition of a dog. Not quite Nate the Train level, but he's up there for sure. He has slick boxing on the feet, constant pressure, and a strong wrestling game to go with it. If Chepe makes this fight dirty and extends it into rounds 2 and 3, I think he gets it done. Give me Chepe by decision. Next fight on the card, co-main event, we have Alexander Hernandez taking on Damon Jackson. And with this fight, Hernandez minus 210, 5'9", 31 years old, 72-inch reach, taking on Jackson, who is plus 175, 5'11", 35 years old, has a 71-inch reach. Alexander Hernandez is always an interesting case to break down. In his UFC debut, he starches future top 5 title challenger Beneil Dariush in round 1. He shares the octagon with guys like Donald Cerrone, Drew Dober, Thiago Moises, and Renato Moicano. He doesn't beat those high-level guys, but he is competitive and builds a wealth of experience along the way. Then he experiments with dropping down to 145, and it partially works because he's a killer in round 1, but then the cardio dump is real and he quickly fades away. He goes back to 155 and beats Jim Miller by decision, looks solid there, but then he drops back to 145 and loses to Bill Algeo. I personally believe he should be a lightweight. I think most people agree there, but he's back at 145 for this fight, so that's clearly where he wants to be. He's fighting Damon Jackson, who is now 35 years old. He's pretty huge for the featherweight, but doesn't have a whole ton of power. Plus, he's low volume and has a negative striking differential. Where he shines is in the grappling department, where he uses his long limbs to dominate position, throw up sub attempts, and rack up control time. I don't think his cardio is leaps and bounds above Hernandez's, so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but I will take a flyer on Hernandez to get the job done, and I will say by decision. That's your co-main. Moving on to the main event of the night, Brendan Allen taking on Chris Curtis in the rematch. Allen is down to a minus 200 favorite. He is 6'2", 28 years old, 75-inch reach, taking on Curtis, the action man, plus 170, 5'10", now 36 years old, has a 75.5-inch reach. Guys, Curtis is a nightmare matchup for Allen. He has stellar A-plus takedown defense, 92% to be exact. And when he forces you to stand, he's a damn problem on the feet, showing very good boxing skills with legit fight-ending power. He constantly moves forward, has a granite chin and a strong gas tank to go with it. Plus, he already knocked out Brendan Allen back in 2021. But since then, Allen has been on a ridiculous run. He's 6-0 with 5 of those wins by submission. 5. Yes, that is crazy. He has improved so much since that last fight with Curtis. The striking is improved. He's dropping people. He's taking backs, snatching necks. He's become a certified killer. But looking closer at the wins, Paul Craig is a one-dimensional grappler who went down a weight class. Bruno Silva just isn't high level. Andre Muniz is a one-dimensional grappler. Christos Giagos is a harmless technical striker. Malkoun is strictly a wrestler. And Sam Alvey is Sam Alvey. So just to poke some holes in that 6-0 run. But Chris Curtis, he could very well be the kryptonite of Brendan Allen, just mentioning how his style matches up with Allen's game. But no two fights play out the same way. And I think Allen has improved tremendously since their first fight together. It is low confidence. The odds coming down, a little money in on Chris Curtis, I think does make sense. But I think the Allen hype train keeps rolling here. I will take Brendan Allen to win. Give me a round 3 knockout. And that takes us to the prelims. First fight of the night, we have Court McGee taking on Alex Morono. McGee plus 245. He is 5'11", 39 years old, 75-inch reach, taking on Morono. Minus 310 now, 5'11", 33 years old, has a 72-inch reach. McGee is another fighter on this card, turning 40 years old this year. He is a gritty, old-school fighter looking to grind you out with his toughness, work in the wrestling, and edge out a close decision. He's another guy with a wealth of experience, but his best days are long gone, and he's actually coming off back-to-back round 1 KO losses against Jeremiah Wells and the OG Matt Brown. Morono does have concerning durability at times, but his overall skill set will be much greater than McGee's here. He's a talented striker with a very underrated grappling game. Outside of a fluke knockout by McGee, this seems to be Morono all day. I'll say he gets it done by finish. Give me Morono, round 2 knockout. Next fight, Dumont taking on Randemie. Dumont minus 160. She is 5'7", 33 years old, 67-inch reach, taking on Randemie, who's now all the way down to a plus 130 underdog, 5'9", 39 years old, 71-inch reach. Dumont is making the move down to 135 in this fight. She's on a nice 3-0 run with wins over Danielle Wolf, Carol Hossa, and Chelsea Chandler. She's got decent boxing, mixes in takedowns well, and has strong 3-round cardio. Germaine Randemie is turning 40 years old this month and hasn't fought since 2020, where she actually choked out Juliana Pena in round 3. She's a talented striker on the feet, staying very defensively sound, has strong takedown defense, but she is extremely low volume. This is a weird matchup. It feels like Dumont should cruise to a victory, being the much younger, more active fighter, but Randemie is a tricky stylistic matchup, and 39 years old in women's MMA isn't the end of the world. Give me Randemie to pull off the upset, I will say, by decision. Next fight, they have Alatang Haley taking on Hugo. That fight has been canceled, so we'll move on to Rodriguez taking on Calvillo. Rodriguez is minus 135, 5'3", 31 years old, 63.5-inch reach, taking on Calvillo, who is 5'4", 36 years old, 64-inch reach. She is the plus 115 underdog. I've been like a semi-fan of Piera Rodriguez. She has some decent boxing on the feet. She mixes in the wrestling nicely, having secured at least 1 takedown in every UFC fight so far, and actually 3 times securing 3 or more takedowns. But that also seems to work against a lower level of competition. Kay Hansen got her down twice, and Jillian Robertson dominated the grappling exchanges in their fight. Calvillo is on a 5-fight skid, but she is constantly in there with the division's top females. And outside of her getting finished in a few losses, she's actually keeping fights close and competitive. She's capable of landing over 100 significant strikes, and her wrestling very well could be better than Piera's. I know Calvillo is old and washed, but it's another dog shot I like. Give me Calvillo to win by decision. Next fight, Argueta taking on Matsumoto. Argueta plus 150, 5'7", 30 years old, 68-inch reach, taking on Matsumoto, who is minus 180, 5'6", 24 years old, 68.5-inch reach. Argueta has been hot and cold in the UFC so far. He actually looked half decent in a short notice debut against Damon Jackson. He dominated Nick Aguirre in a decision win and then becomes the victim of back-to-back no contests. One where he was dominating Ronnie Lawrence and the ref made a mistake, and one was a loss overturned because Miles Johns tested positive for steroids. At his best, he is a stocky, powerful wrestler with good pressure, power in his hands, and a decent gas tank. It's an interesting matchup because he takes on Matsumoto, who's making his UFC debut at age 24, and he seems to check all the boxes. He's a black belt in BJJ, but his stand-up game is nasty. He throws high volume, nasty combinations, and strong 3-round cardio. I'm torn. I got to say, I hate Matsumoto as a near 2-1 favorite, but I do think he's the rightful side to get the job done. I will take Matsumoto by decision, but I am staying away. I don't hate a shot on Argueta as the underdog. I totally understand that, especially considering Matsumoto is making his debut at age 24, totally unproven, and Argueta can be a tough stylistic matchup. So I'm staying away, but give me Matsumoto to win. Two more fights here. We have Budka taking on Almeida. Budka minus 150, 6 foot, 24 years old, 75-inch reach, taking on Almeida, who is plus 125. He is 6'1", 36 years old, has a 74-inch reach. This is an interesting fight. Almeida is only 4-0 in MMA, but that's because he's a lifelong kickboxer making the move to MMA later in his career. And just to show you how good of a kickboxer he is, or was, still is, he actually went 3 rounds with Alex Pereira back in 2013 and came out with a win. He also lost to Pereira twice, and I do think we should pump the brakes a little bit on that win because that was over 10 years ago. His biggest issue is obviously grappling, which I didn't think it looked great in his Dana White Contender Series fight. His opponent was 3-10 on takedowns with 5 minutes of control. It does get a little bit interesting because Budka is an aggressive wrestler who has strong takedowns, good forward pressure, and a decent gas tank to back it up. Almeida has the better stand-up game by a mile, but if Budka gets the takedowns, Almeida will begin to fade. That's where I'm leaning with this one. Give me Budka to win by decision. And that takes us to our final fight, which is actually the first fight of the night on the prelims. Cornolle is plus 270, 5'7", 34 years old, has a 67-inch reach, taking on Melissa Mullins, aka Melissa Dixon, minus 360, 5'7", 32 years old, has a 68-inch reach. Nora Cornolle came into the UFC late in her career. She's now 34 years old, and she was basically a certified can crusher on the regional scene. And yes, she did beat Jocelyn Edwards in her UFC debut, but her takedown defense was exposed and her cardio is a problem. Mullins is actually a decent women's MMA prospect. Alex Siva was a tricky UFC debut, and she edged her out by being aggressive and racking up control time. She also has good wrestling if she needs it. I like Mullins to win this fight, and I think it actually looked pretty easy. The lines do indicate that, so give me Melissa Mullins to win this fight by decision, and that is every single fight on UFC Vegas 90. That's the show, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck with your bets this weekend, and we will see you next week for UFC 300.